talk about my work, I think the one thing that I'm pursuing all the time is to break the mold. And that's one of the reasons I do work that tries to avoid what I call my aesthetic prejudice of the moment. I think all we have when we look at art or read poetry or listen to music, all we have is our aesthetic prejudice of the moment. And I use the word prejudice purposely because I argue with the idea that there's a standard of beauty up on Mount Olympus that every artist must strive for. I think that the only path for an artist is to let the ideas be as unfettered, untied as possible, and continue moving forward. I have changed tremendously since 1960, which was the first year I put a date on something. I don't know why I became an artist. I think I've come to the conclusion that all members of our species are artists. And I think if we look at the so-called primitive people, we can understand why I say that. They can't help but make beautiful things. And I think that living in such a foreign situation as a city or with buildings, I think when we so-called civilization or civilized existence is so far from what we are intended. I can't use the word intended because that implies religion and a personal God who had plans for us. I don't know anything about that. I don't think anyone knows anything about that. Some people have very strong suspicions in one direction or another, but I don't think anyone knows anything about that. So I won't use the word intended, but obviously we're still able to survive without a grocery store, without a supermarket. I made a lot of enemies when I gave a talk at the academy by saying we don't need anything that comes in a package. And many people took that as a personal insult. And it astonished me that they took it as a personal insult because it's obvious that we don't need anything that comes in a package. We have made up our mind that we can't live without things that come in a package, but that doesn't mean that we need things that come in a package. And I think that our dependence and the change that has happened in us by living on hardwood floors, walking on the concrete street and seeing, instead of mountains, piles of bricks with windows in them, has made us all neurotic in one way or another. Some deal with it better than others. Some are quite happy with their neuroses. Some are miserable with their neuroses. You have every shade of that. And I think that artists are those few who are neurotic in a way that it is essential to their continuing to exist, continuing to breathe, that they have to try to make art. So I think underneath it, we're all artists. And I think that's the fascination of art and poetry and music. Underneath it, we're all artists. We all have a tremendous capacity for creativity. I believe that. And there's something about living in such a completely unnatural environment that changes that for most people. And they say, oh, I'm not an artist. I can't draw a straight line. Why anybody would want to draw a straight line is an interesting question, but that's what you always hear with people that can't draw a straight line. So, and that's the fascination of art. It's something that we all have in us, I believe. I think we all have this art gene that's part of Homo sapiens. To me, that's absolutely a part of Homo sapiens. And my feeling about art is that what is left from civilization, I'm convinced of this, it's the art. It's the art of a civilization that really lasts, that everything else is ephemeral. And I include Socrates as an artist, and Nietzsche as an artist. And I think there's no such thing as a great philosopher who's not a great artist. So that's my feeling about that big subject of art. I am not interested. I started to write about my work. There are two artists that I showed in the same I showed in the same gallery with from 1965 to 1970. The same gallery with artists that most of you know their names: Solowit, Robert Smithson, Carl Andre, Michael Heiser, Dan Flavin, Robert Lyman. And I remained friendly with, really three of them. Two of them I remained friendly fairly continuously. And they asked me to write about my work. And interesting that I have written about other things. I've written about Alfred Jarry, who's a playwright who influenced Marcel Duchamp and James Joyce. I've written about John Cage, who I was very friendly with and played chess with for 15 years. But I didn't write about my art, at least not for publication. And both Carl Andre and Solowit encouraged me to write about my art and publish something about it, because both of them had been helped by writing about their art. And then Dove and I were having dinner with Carl Andre and Melissa Kretschmer, his partner. And he said, how's the writing going? And I said, the first sentence that came out was, nothing in this world has ever bored me except my own old work. And Carl Andre is the last person who ever likes to say that he's like anyone. He would never say, I'm like this person or that person. And as soon as I said that, he said, I'm exactly the same way. So I think that artists probably are that way. Unless the work is connected with what I'm doing now or where I'm exploring now, it doesn't interest me. And I'm very forgetful about my own work. It's a kind of strange amnesia. And Sam will verify that I come across things there and I say, did I do that? And I think that's probably true of every real artist, and I'm calling myself a real artist. Very tied in with that, I'll mention as I finish that John Cage was asked in an auditorium, standing room only, back when we had a national endowment in America where they actually tried to help artists that needed help. That we don't have that anymore. But they asked John Cage, he was an invited speaker, and the first question they asked him is, what would you look for in an artist to give an award to help them to get along? And he said, I would look for someone who did not know where his next idea was coming from. And I think that's a very sound approach to making art and to looking at art. It's a completely it's almost like burning your bridges behind you kind of.